Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right on the weekend because Atlanta's tomorrow. Okay, so
we'll talk about those two, and then
Rocco's
this week
joining us.
Hi, Rocco.
Oh, sup, Rocco?
Rocco
in the house.
Wow.
Stanced up, Rocco?
What?
It's interesting to have animal interruptions that aren't just Luna for once.
No.
Mm-hmm.
My guys were fighting earlier, but hopefully they've gotten out of their system. It's Alex! Episode 215 of View from 202. Despite my previous promises, I have not left the country. I'm still here, determined to cover the New York Red Bulls after a very momentous week. We advance in the Open Cup. We fly out to LAFC, and we move forward towards the heart of the summer stretch of this 2022 season. And I guess we're feeling a little nostalgic this week because the four of us are back on an old enemy of ours. That's right. The web application Zencastr. How does it feel to be back on this accursed website, guys?
Well, Cork and I had a little bit of a prelude to this Zencastr experience by guesting on the 69th episode of Metro Fan. So.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't able to make that.
You had some
having a panic
issues.
attack.
Yeah. But no, I'm conditioned for the weird like phaser sound in the background, whatever this shit is. I guess it's a special new feature that Zencastr adopted. So very, very, very nice.
I'm just glad to see my sound waves coming in and out because I think the last times we recorded, we like missed my entire audio. That was like one of the last times we did it.
Don't speak too soon because
I know,
like,
I can at least see things moving, so I'll take that as a win. But
this might have been. I can't remember if this was before Cork joined or not. So if it was just three of us or four of us, but there was that one episode that we did pre-pandemic in person. But Peaches' mic was just off the whole time. So we just published it. And then we were like, you know what? Like, everyone can kind of figure out what he's saying based on what we're saying in response.
I think I was on by then, but that was a show that I randomly missed. So it added even more to the to the stripped down factor.
Deep cut.
What can we say? Very avant-garde.
Well, I say to whoever left COVID-19 in 202, this active bioterrorism will not.
Yeah, how is the vid? Do you think you got COVID from Lucanius and Aaron Long?
Maybe, or whoever NYCFC left it for. Yeah, that's what happened. That's why they were undergoing COVID protocols. Because
honestly, you probably got it from me, if we're being honest. But
I'm not really sure if the timing of that really works out. But I'm still gonna mostly say it was Alex Sassaroli who had gotten it before I did, who also sits in 202, who somehow left the virus on the seat for 2 weeks.
I probably got it from him, and then I probably ensured that you got it later when we went camping. So
but, I'm super immune for a little bit, so
you get a free pass.
I don't lick people and stuff.
Yeah, I thought it'd be bad karma if I saw you in person, but then again, I did go to Sassaroli's own house on Sunday, so it probably touched,
he was patient zero of all of this.
Right, yeah. He was at the, Yale COVID lab over the weekend before we went over, so I'm sure I've got the fresh new strain,
That CIA pack.
Yeah, I guess, and as we'll say, maybe that Struber opined on later, I feel like at this point, just with the vaccinations and exposures, there's such a wide window of when you could possibly get it that has like an unpredictable thing with like symptoms and all that. So who fucking knows? After my latest bureaucratic struggles, I'm not looking to add one thing to my trip, but
luckily the CDC guidelines allow me to go back to Red Bull Arena, so I timed it getting this perfect.
In order you aced it.
Yeah.
I took the PATH train twice this week, completely unrelated to Harrison, New Jersey, and it felt bizarre. But I did see many ads on the PATH train within the train itself. And as we all know, that's the real game. That's the real master game, the real chess game that the gods play is the advertisement. So well done to the club for that.
On the PATH train, this is about the Messi burger at the Hard Rock.
That was the pilot program for launching soccer in New York.
Right.
And now they're bold enough to advertise the Red Bulls. So
yeah, now they're selling a Gareth Bale mutton taco at Sharky's in Los Angeles, thanks to the new signing, momentous signing. This instead of being, the biggest thing. So the reason I'm not in Ireland like I was planning to be is that it turns out I had Dennis Hamlet do my passport paperwork for me. So it was expired. It expired 10 days before I was set to leave. I'm sorry, Dennis. I know you were actually dragged through the mud on that. You know how to reply to emails. I actually had Scott Pearson do my paperwork for me, and it was all bung to try to get me to go spend money to go to St. Albans, Vermont, and drive 6.5 hours each way and get my passport renewed there. But I learned a lot in the process, especially since while waiting for my passport to get renewed, wandered around the lovely little town of St. Albans, and lo and behold, next to the train station, I ran into the local old man who's also a city council member, because in these towns of Vermont, like half the population is a city council member. And he started just sort of talking at me about the history of everything. And I really felt like home in that moment. And then I realized later it's because, I was like, wow, this really is replicating the experience of being at a New York Red Bulls press conference. It was really, lots of nice monologues that really just was like a snug little coat around me. We can cut that if that's too sensitive. But otherwise, it's been a great week, I think.
Why do you have to go to St. Albans?
Oh boy, because before I got an appointment in Vermont, I was just spamming the national hotline to try to get appointments. And they just had nothing. So it was just constantly playing roulette on like the hold number so I've listened to that one, like either Mozart or Beethoven symphony, like for like 8 hours in one day, as the hold music. So it was just, and then I was trying to get my, honorable representative Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Gillibrand to get me an appointment, because apparently this is something you can do. But the only appointment I was able to get at first was in El Paso, Texas. And I was honest to God considering buying a plane ticket and going out to El Paso, Texas, and coming back. But then I got one in Vermont. So I just bit the bullet on renting a car in Jersey and driving up there and driving back in one day. So that's what I was doing the last 48 hours. And this is how I assume, like Atlanta United and NYCFC were getting all their passports and green cards, is that they just had their gremlins go driving to every passport agency across the country for below minimum wages, because this is, as I've gathered, the only way to do it.
Hey, just a quick little update. NYCFC is losing 3-0 to Cincinnati in the first half.
Folks, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not an authorized broker of any sort. However, I can just say that I am personally buying stock in the Nick Cushing zone after our experience in the last week. I cannot technically advise you to do so as well, but that is personally what I've done in the last.
If you can't get in on the Cushing zone, buy stock in pixelated Cushing, because
yes.
you really can't go wrong in the next few weeks.
The finer grain of pixels, the better.
Yep.
And also playing at the time that we're recording right now is Nashville and Orlando. I think they'll probably finish by the time we finish, so we'll be able to comment on who are likely to play in the next round. But really, to cap off my own personal sob story, the worst part about this is that I had to cancel the part of my trip where I was going to Cork City in Ireland. So everyone has missed a million hilarious posts I was going to make about entering the heart of darkness and the place where Ben Cork and all of his posts were born. But we're just going to have to save it for another time, because maybe just the metropolitan area that birthed not only Ben Cork, but Roy Keane and Stephen Ireland was just too powerful of a place for me to enter at this time. I need to acquire more strength before entering, clearly. Yeah. But, who didn't need to acquire more strength at the beginning of this week was the New York Red Bulls in the Open Cup, because we sure had our way around with New York City FC last Wednesday, didn't we? I was not there. I had a good excuse, I promise. But were all three of you there?
I was.
I'm getting nods.
Yeah,
I guess all were.
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
relying
You
on
have to bring whoever your friend is to every game now, I guess, and sit wherever you were.
Yeah, well, so this actually works out nice. For like all the Open Cup games, there's only been 3 Open Cup games against City. I've sat with my friend Patrick, who is a New York City fan, and we've gone to games together over the past few seasons for stuff like this. And he's a good luck charm because they've never won. So. Yeah, we sat in the lower bowl, and it was a sight to see.
Nice. I think everyone who's not on this podcast is named Patrick.
I was going to say, we already have too many Patricks in the 202 expanded universe, so we don't have to factor this one in. It's fine.
Yeah. What was the atmosphere like? It sounded like it was a bit rockin' on the broadcast, or on the highlights at least. South Ward sounded good to me, but was it a lively place? Were there a lot of City fans? How did it compare to previous years?
It definitely it was a thinner crowd, which you expect for midweek games of any magnitude. But even that being said, it was definitely a loud atmosphere. I was a little worried pregame as it was filling in that South Ward might be a little small, because there actually were a ton of City fans that filled up that little corner. But by the time kickoff happened, City basically stopped singing after 10 minutes, and the South Ward was loud as hell. And I'm not sure if I've let this spill over onto the pod, but I've talked a little bit about how South Ward has felt a little thin in the post-COVID era, even by post-COVID standards, and this felt like a real kind of watershed for it, kind of having some momentum. So we'll see.
City update, they just missed a penalty.
Oh, God.
Well, that was the only goal they could score on Sunday as well, was a penalty, which, it was a perfect deployment of Armis's own strategy for that penalty as well. Yeah. So that's another underlying factor in the decision to buy that I made. Cannot legally recommend that you do. But that was an interesting thread I picked out from this game, and came sort of for some player comments as well. The atmosphere aspect, because they released an all access that it didn't actually include the cup game, but it included the month of games behind the scenes up until the cup game, which I think included the last game that we played at MSU. And there's been a lot of quotes from players, both in the press conferences and in these sort of interviews that the communications team put together, where a bunch of guys are commenting on how the MSU game, where it was a little bit more intimate and stripped down, seemed to kind of be an opportunity for the players and fans to get a little bit more up close and maybe sort of reset, their barometer on just watching soccer in a more stripped down experience that seemed to be productive. And it seems like that sort of only grew in this Open Cup game. I can't remember how much we commented on it last episode, but the crowd at Toronto also felt a little bit more rejuvenated. So I kind of buy this theory. If the players are saying it alone, that shows that some of the most important people involved are buying into it, that there has sort of been a jolt into the atmosphere after that sort of MSU fixture, whether that was intentional or predictable or not, which I think is really encouraging to see. And I was going to say, how do the City away fans, I don't even know how to really refer to them anymore, but how do they still make this mistake of singing before the match? But then I realized, at their home stadium, they only sing for about 10 minutes. Like they don't exhaust themselves before the opening whistle at Yankee Stadium, but they sing like their 3 songs for 10 minutes and then they're quiet the rest of the game. So it's not even like they know better. I guess they just are quiet in general. But it's hilarious that they cannot seem to get a grip still.
They always start socializing with each other by the second half, as we saw in this game as well.
My God.
In a certain manifestation.
And it seemed like it was feeding. It was a cyclical relationship between them and the team. Both of them seem to have a similar mindset, because one aspect that I don't think I was able to capture or get a sense of as much from the highlights and online was how much the City players are just losing their nerve. So it sounds like they lost their first minute.
Like the first kick of the game, basically.
Just immediately hounding the ref.
Yeah, there was like the first whistle was in, the first minute or two, and Chanot like literally ran like 30 yards from, being inside his own penalty box to like hip check one of his teammates out of the way so that he could like practically throttle the ref without, fully grabbing him, and just like freaking out, like just rattled from the first minute. I mean, it was like what we've seen from like opposing center backs in second halves in these games, where we're just kind of smothering and frustrating teams on the press, where they're just freaking out at the refs and just anybody in sight. Chanot was doing that within like the first 5 minutes. It was insane. They were just clearly rattled, and it seemed like a pretty specific instruction from this new Mank Armas that they have, pixelated Cushing, to just not only harass the ref and just gang up on the ref on every single whistle, but also to hack Luquinhas, just rough tackles on, RBNY players. So it all ended up, kind of coming full circle with them then claiming that they came to play beautiful football and were prevented from doing that. Meanwhile, Keaton, sorry, didn't put the accent. Keaton didn't put the accent on it. Was posting, after the game how, actually, when I cut Luquinhas' ankle open, I was actually coming from this angle on the side, and then all this shit, and then he deleted it 20 minutes later. So
when I was catching up on that, I assumed, I was like, oh, was it Keaton who got the red card? Like, because presumably, that's, if you're going to take to Twitter to whine, it'd be about a red card, right? And then I looked and I was like,
he was lucky to get away with a yellow. Yeah, so that added to it. They're very consistent with their character. You have to give them that. They never disappoint. They're always turned on. They're professionals in their own way. You can always rely on them. So good to see. Good night for the game.
Yeah, it seems like they really turn it on when they play us, and especially this week. But it does seem like it's their MO in general for other teams, and that they seem to feel confident that they can sort of bully around refs and other teams, and they'll just sort of be like fun. Like it's just sort of like all being the most difficult person in a situation. In a lot of situations, if it's people who don't really know you, they'll be like, whatever, fine. Yeah, just leave me alone, Jesus. But when they try it on us, we're like, nah, fuck off. Get out of here. Come on.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that
we've been here before. Yeah.
Yeah. The ref seemed to be of a similar mindset as well. And I'm glad that the Red Bulls, we seem to be turning the page on this, because I mean the frustrating beginning of the season, we seemed to be sort of out of our element, still maintaining sort of a mediocre form instead of a poor form, but out of our element when it came to like the way that we interact with the refereeing and the sort of pace and tone of the game. But as we've said in previous episodes, all of our opponents seem to be reacting poorly to that as well. Last couple games, in particular this Open Cup game, we have come across as the more mature, in control side, and our opponents a couple times, not every game, but a couple times, and especially NYCFC, have come off like they just cannot get a handle anything, which is really pleasing to see as well. We played a first team lineup. We see CCJ pairing with Amaya, and it feels like this is sort of a coming out party for CCJ. And then I guess we see Barlow up top in place for Klimala, and then Klimala starts on the weekend. So I guess that is the sort of the one spot you might say we have a rotation. And then we have a 3 in the back system being deployed yet again. My sense was that this is very stable, and it seemed to do the trick from the opening half. Is that do you think representative?
Yeah, no, I mean it seems like just kind of a pretty standard formation in general now, including it's what the reserves are running now, like every single game. That we're just going with 3 in the back, and hopefully it gets easier with Andres Reyes getting back to health, which is kind of a little side plot in the last few weeks. But and there were pictures of him in training today. But anyway, that's looking to be sort of the standard look from the back. And as we've kind of commented on the show, we like that, and it just allows the team to be kind of more secure, feeling things out in the first half, and just leaves a better platform to sort of, adjust from that in the second half, whether that means you want to, subtract, like we saw in Toronto game, the DC game, subtract a center back and, kind of add more midfielders, or if you want to stick with that and just change the look up top. I think it's just a formation that gives you more room to sort of shift out from, and it's we talked about how it just generally allows the team to play more like themselves, take more risks, allow more defenders to step up, and it's looking like a pretty standard thing from here on out.
I was going to ask when does Reyes get back? What's his current status? I know he's been
Struber.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's been back in training. I mean, he's been doing individual training, and the club and himself have been posting videos of him kind of doing individual drills over the last month. And then today there were some photos the club posted of him doing some light training with the reserves. And then Struber said last week he thinks first week of July, i.e. next week, is when he'll be in full-on team training and potentially available for selection again.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
maybe he does. Maybe he does a stint with RB2, does a couple of USL games, but yeah, either way, looking pretty close.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how he would fit in with Nealis and Long in like a potential three-man back line, and if there's chemistry there, because of how well Nealis and Reyes meshed together at the end of last season. It would be a nice step up from, I think, how we're currently lined up too. So sooner the better for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're showing in the last few weeks with Long missing games for various reasons that we kind of, especially playing 3 in the back, we could use an extra kind of dependable personnel there, especially since it looks like Monzon has just been crocked for weeks on end. So we shall see.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe that's more anticipating also the LAFC game, since obviously we don't concede against City, but I do think there's a common thread in a couple of the goals we've conceded recently, going back to Charlotte and Miami, where it almost seems to be sort of a gap in communication and organization rather than like individual skill per se. I think we all rate Tom Edwards very highly, and I don't think any of the goals have really been like on him individually, but I do think having sort of a stable of those three center backs where you have Long pairing with Nealis is an established good partnership, and then Nealis pairing with Reyes is an established and good partnership, is a lot of good redundancy that makes sure that we know that we have, a lot of guys on the field where two of them at least should have a good sense of playing with each other. Because I think when it's been more just like the two Nealises and Edwards or some combination where Long's been out, there have been a couple of moments where we seem to lose some focus or communication. So that could be really huge going forward. That said, I think we're still playing pretty well even without it. So it's like feels like an abundance of riches there. The thing that I forgot that was really glaring for me about the City game as well is that, especially on camera, City wearing these orange kits and us wearing these white kits is still just very it just puts me off at first. Like, I don't expect them to be white, but like they almost look a little orange-ish red on the highlights, and every time I see them with the ball, it's just weird that it's not us. Not that we've ever had a kit that looks that color, but
I think just like my personal taste, but I feel like it's a little bit of a consensus too, is that those are just like ugly kits.
yeah.
And just not it's not their colors either. And I think when the club put out that they were going to do like all white kits, I think there was some reaction to it, like, oh no, we have to wear red, which like I get, but also I think it might have been gamesmanship of just like, oh yeah, if we wear all white, then they can't wear their blue and white, so they have to wear their weird freak kit. And obviously the vibes were not with them on the night, so like to think that decision contributed to it.
Yeah, they look physically uncomfortable for several reasons, but maybe that was one of them. So the first goal that we scored against them, I feel like it's nice to increasingly be converting these sort of chances. And I think of the sort of different set piece routines, acknowledging that set pieces are fake and illegal and will be banned after the revolution.
Yes.
Of the ones we do, I feel like this is the purest and most effective, sort of the head on to the back and go up streaking forward. And I feel like it's such a leg up when we can convert one of these cheapies, and then really apply extra pressure onto a team like this, because it feels like it really did break them, because the Thiago Andrade red card is only a couple minutes later, and then it feels like the wheels really start falling apart for them there, and it just seemed like a big momentum shift in the game. And the second goal, I think, not too much later, I think is increasingly typical of a couple goals we're scoring. Just a really nice run by Klimala to get the shot on goal and force a save out of Johnson. He doesn't parry it to the side. He puts it right in front. And then Lucanius, kind of similar to, was it the DC game? Yeah. Just soccer is so easy for him. He just like collects the ball so quickly. Like when you look at it, if you play the highlight, in isolation to someone, and maybe even did it without context and slowed it down, they might be like, okay, yeah, so he gathered the ball and just shot it. What's the big deal? But then when you watch it in full speed and context, he just does that so much faster and more effortlessly than any other player I've seen, at least in MLS. The way that he composes himself and gets the ball at his feet is incredible. And having it in tandem with somebody like Klimala and Barlow to that extent too, who can just pester and create second balls in the box like that, just feels so lethal. And it feels like really that second goal, from my outside perspective, feels like it was a real exclamation mark and solidified it, even though there was one still to come. And I like the nice little detail at the end of it where, while celebrating, I think we just knocked some guy over on City as well. And it reminded me of when BWP scored that goal in Atlanta.
Knocks the shit out of Callens, right? It's like right in front of the goal. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah, it's like when Guzan got up after BWP
Oh yeah,
clonked one in off, and he had just his head covered in those pellets.
turf
It
pellets.
felt kind of like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone
it
called
was.
it an assault on Twitter, I think,
It
and tried
was.
to
It was.
report it.
I mean, it was extra shithouse because Klimala clearly like laid a shoulder into him, but then immediately, like in the same motion, did like the "oh sorry" like move. Like I didn't see you there. Oh my bad. Like, but
Yeah, that looked like an incredible sequence, and for it to happen after such a unforced red card from them is so ridiculous, especially since the guy, I'm gathering that this Thiago guy scored a really big goal for them last year and has been sort of a contributor. Feels relatively anonymous to me compared to their other guys. I mean, I know obviously they're all mercs anyway, 'cause it's just City, but like among their latest influx of expensive Brazilians, I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, obviously they have a guy named Thiago. And now my main association is a guy who just got baited into doing a headbutt right in front of the ref. Like, did this make any more sense in the stadium when it happened?
I mean, I guess Tolkien was kind of chirping at him, and that's what set him off. Which I will say, Tolkien had been kind of going at them and like kind of trolling them and laughing at City players after like tackles and stuff through the whole game. So he might have been like he might have had a target on his back, and then in their characteristic fashion, they aimed for that target in the most comical, ridiculous way possible and completely fucked their whole game up. So I'll take it.
Incredible. And then I see that Morales was listed with the red as well. I guess did he get that after the whistle?
When Edwards got his.
Yeah, there
Right.
was a fight after the whistle. Yeah.
Right. Was there any pizza thrown?
No, but I had my head down when the fight burst broke out because I was doing the important stuff, checking the internet after the game
Mhm.
ended. But then somebody was saying that like Struber was in the middle of it for a second, so there is that. But I forget what we were in the chat talking about how there was some parallel with Fergie's United in that game. Fuck, I wish I could remember what it was, but it'll come
Maybe it'll
back to
come
me.
back.
The first callback to vintage Fergie's United was when Struber called the Open Cup referee fat last month. So this is part two, and then yeah, part three is going to be pizza at some point. You know, I think Struber and Burned and Troy will pick the right moment and pick the right person to take the shot when it happens, but. We'll
Oh,
see.
it's gonna be Tinnerholm, obviously.
Yeah.
As much as it pains me to say this as well, for my little Arsenal self, I can also see Nick Cushing standing on top of the press box with his arms outstretched eventually at RBA. And you'll have, although if he kicking the water bottle, I feel like I don't know if he's gonna be savvy enough to duplicate or do an homage to Wenger kicking the water bottle. But
Oh shit, that's what it was. Yeah, Tolkien said after the game that Coronel, in excitement, entering the locker room, kicked the water bottle into his face.
uh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, pizza will be number 3, and then we'll know that the vibes are in our favor this season.
It's the
Right.
final horseman of the apocalypse.
The treble
Right.
that you'll be hitting the treble if we get
Yeah.
pizza. So
Yeah. And then this ended up being sort of a coming out party for Steven Serwata, right? I mean, I feel like at Toronto we warmed up, but then we didn't end up using him because there was not actually an injury. And then he does make his debut today or on Wednesday against City, and then caps it off with an audacious assist, or I'm calling it an assist at least. I don't know if it got technically counted as one. But that ball he lays off for Harper, streaking down the side, I feel like was such a fuck you to City in a way, where it's what, like 40 yards in front of Harper, but Serwata sees him running. He puts it in the space. he sees that nobody on City is trying anymore. They're all checked out. And he's like, yeah, Harper's going to get to that before anyone. And he points that at it to him. And then we just slot it in effortlessly. And having our Bronx player, Omir Fernandez, do it was a lot of poetry at once there. But was there something that Sirwada, or I guess for that matter, Harper, showed that I would have missed from the highlights as well?
Well, I was going to say that because I mean, Sirwada had only come on in the around the 80th minute or whatever, and only was in the game for about 10, 15 minutes. But in the first 5 minutes or so, you could see Struber kind of be frustrated that he wasn't jumping forward when he would get the ball and not, carrying it or not making that run into the big gap between the midfield and the defensive line that City was leading. And he was kind of instructing him, like, go there, like, make that run or whatever. And then a few minutes later, he literally does that and collects that entry ball and then lays it down for Harper. And, everything you just laid out happened. And it was kind of a dream performance. I mean, I said it on OAM. It was sort of a, you feels like sort of a homecoming party for the Red Bull, for energy drink soccer being in the ascendancy again. And we'll just see how far it goes.
Back to old ways, winning at home, losing away.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think I'm gonna build on this for my take on the LAFC loss as well. But I feel like sort of a theme that I've been saying about this season so far is just sort of this feeling that there's sort of a tension that everyone in different ways feels that there might be a shoe that's going to drop later, that this team is sort of on the cusp of something, but for one reason or the other was not taking the final step, but also wasn't quite collapsing yet either. This week, and I think in hindsight, maybe the month in general does feel like a step towards, that shoe dropping, so to speak. That things feel a little bit more crystallized. This win against City feels more like a proof of concept or a statement of sort of what we want to do and how it might look. And I think in some ways the loss against LAFC, I think, resembled a more typical or understandable way that this kind of soccer could lose, as well as a sort of inverse. So it just felt like a momentous time at the arena, and it feels like most importantly, a little bit less cognitive dissonance. Because if there's anything I hate, mostly it's cognitive dissonance about this game. First things first, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so what was was there anything of note after the game as well for City either in the pressers or the stadium or the trip back?
I mean,
when is there not with City?
Yeah, I mean, not to pile on him too hard, and I mean, to his credit, City is back. I mean, to his credit and the Zone's credit, City has tied the game with Cincinnati 3-3 by now.
Oh my God, what the fuck?
But I mean, that's extra zone, though. I mean, now Cushing will be able to act like a hero and get people off his back for a couple weeks.
It's all coming together.
Get people off his back for a couple weeks while he murmurs and drones through press conferences and struggles to construct sentences. And I don't know. This is kind of reminding you of a certain interim manager from the past.
The full pass is coming back, folks.
Yeah, the full pass. We're going back. We're going back to full tiki taka. We're bringing back the full ball circulation.
I don't want you to pass the ball until you can see the white in their eyes. I can't. All of their goals were in stoppage time for the first half too, which is so them. That's so them. They, just they probably did some bullshit to get 8 minutes of stoppage time because they probably broke the ref's eardrum by screaming at him and got 10 minutes of
Also, Chanot has just trash tattoos. Having gotten to view him up close, he has a whole jigsaw puzzle on one of his arms. It's just very insane. But hey, I mean, again, they're so on character. They have such a cohesive identity. You have to give it to them. They find players who fit their system and fit their just awful vibes.
Have you
So you have to
considered
hand it to
that
them.
the real puzzle is Chanel's heart to unlock?
I mean, he kind of seemed in his feelings in this press conference. So
Why are they such like? It's just they're so. They're all of them suck so much. Like it's just like a club trait, I guess. A club quality is like you have to be the worst possible person to play for that team. That's their
Yeah.
scouting department. They just look
It
for
does feel like
poor character.
it feels like across the league, everyone else was like, "Yeah, God, thank God, finally, like somebody knocked these guys on their ass."
yeah,
But
totally.
well, what a great time! I wasn't able to make it because my lovely family was in town, and uh, my sister had two shows that were opening this week, which were written up. They got reviewed in the New Yorker, and the review, the lead and the whole start of it was focused on her design in it, which, fellas, means, of course, obviously, look out for the forthcoming New Yorker glowing review of View from 202, because this is obviously what's happening next. It's important, as we know, the most important thing is for Red Bull New York to receive validation from the sources of record, the New York Times and the New Yorker. So that's coming, thanks to the, based on this precedence.
Are we gonna get the credible lighting design to really get us there? Because we
Yeah,
really
that
need
will
that
put
on
us
this
over.
podcast, which is
First
very
podcast to include lighting design. I'm gonna start you saying all words that have double E's in them, so we can have as many diaresis in our review as possible. The trademark New Yorker move. Let's talk about Sunday, LAFC. First thing that happens in this game, several of our players couldn't play in it because they tested positive for COVID. Speeches gave it to them,
Yep.
obviously.
Yeah,
Or
more
him to
Spain.
me.
So it
Who's
seems
playing
like some of them never got on the plane, but some did get on the plane and are stuck there. Is that right? Lucchinius is he still in LA?
As of yesterday afternoon, he was. Struber said in his midweek press conference, and he kind of spilled the news that Lucchinius was still in California quarantining and needs to have a negative test to be able to get on a plane, and then another negative test once he gets on the ground here in order to just rejoin training. Meanwhile, on the other side, he said Long is a lot. He didn't go into detail, but he just said that Aaron Long is a lot, further along in that process and a lot more likely to be available again. But for Sunday, both them and Jason Pendon, let's not forget him, were not available for that game. And whether or not it would have made a difference, it's not entirely clear. Sean Nealis said it probably would have, put us over the top. And you'd like to think, with the impact that Lucchinius has had on the team from a tactical, spiritual kind of every perspective over the last couple of months, you would like to think that he would have. But at the same time, this still was a game against literally the best team in the league on the other side of the country, and there was only so much you could really expect from a game like this, even in the best of times, like we were in after that Derby game.
It's a shame. I have some news to break that we know that I got COVID at the same time, but I was actually handing Lucchinius swabs to test positive falsely so that he could take a short break at LA because I felt like he needed it. He was carrying the team on his back for too long. He needed a nice sunny vacation.
And it was strategic. You thought we might lose that game anyway, so might as well fully sandbag it.
If Struber could not see the writing on the wall with rotation in the spreadsheets, then sometimes you just have to take it into your own hands.
Yeah, you could have just hacked into the mainframe and changed all of the sports bra stats. You could have just made it so
Funnily
Lucchinius
enough,
had.
Dennis Hamlet had left his password to the Google sheet at No Pong somewhere, and then now we have access. So.
Oh, this is probably how my passport expiration got changed. Fuck. Anyone shouldn't have Dennis handling both of these things at once. I mean, if you had to pick two players that would be most influential on a game, I might pick those two with
yeah.
with a tie. Frankie Amaya might be also up there. I think those are definitely three. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and exclude goalkeeper from this as well because I feel like it's just different. Because Coronel also, maybe. But like of the outfield players, Lucchinius, Amaya, and Long, I think are probably the most three influential guys we have right now. That said, I think we played pretty decent without them. Didn't create a ton in the first half, but we certainly weren't outmatched by LAFC. I think it looked a little bit more similar to some of the other games we played in the Sun Belt recently, where we just maybe a little flat across the board and wilted over time. I think we definitely performed better compared to, say, Charlotte or Miami. Maybe a little bit closer to Miami than the Miami fixture than the Charlotte fixture. But I also bring this up because Charlotte is sort of an example where Lucchinius did sort of struggle to get in the game because everyone struggled to get in the game. He wasn't really an exception to that. So, point taken that this might have been the case on Sunday as well. That said, I think we fared all right. We're not overmatched by LAFC. It was really only about 90 seconds or 2 minutes where they put the advantage over us. And I gotta say, earlier in the season, I've been complaining sort of about these kind of semi-set piece type goals that we're conceding, and it feels uncharacteristic for us. Thinking of like the Minnesota goal or Montreal as well, sort of just not getting organized and letting in an easy header to create an easy chance. This week, however, looking especially at that first goal that Arango scores and that Vela puts him in, this feels like, if you've been watching the Red Bulls the last 5 to 6 years, that felt like a very familiar type goal to me. We're saying, oh yeah, I know this. Over the last couple of years, asterisk on 19 and 20 maybe, because we were just sort of a mess those years. I feel like that's just sort of a prototypical goal that the high press will give up every once in a while. If a team is able to get a player into that sort of space on a high line and not able to snuff out an entry ball, the sort of system we play is highly vulnerable to that. That's happened so many times to us. I think it would have been better to have Long out there. I mean, it wouldn't have hurt to have Long out there, but this is, I think, sort of an implicit risk or inherent risk of a high line system as we ran it. And I think having Frankie no longer in the field also didn't help. But to me, this felt, I guess I'll say this is a silver lining. This to me felt like more of an understandable goal to concede that we made them sort of earn by picking a specific systemic weakness of our system rather than sort of having a lapse in concentration. So to me, that is much less worse than other losses we've had this season. But is this just cope? Am I saying this wrong? I don't know.
I think that's pretty sound. Yeah, I mean, I kind of already said my piece, but it's unless you're operating. I mean, God knows that some people on the internet operate on the premise that if everything isn't going perfect at all times for all people, you're not doing enough. But yeah, you're not going to win every single game. I mean, Tolkien actually had a pretty good kind of little shoot about it in the midweek press conference yesterday, where he was just kind of saying like, it's and he wasn't even saying it in like a whiny sort of excuse making way. He was just being kind of matter of fact, just like winning on the road is really, really hard, especially against a good team. And we still had a good performance, but sometimes that's not enough in every game. There are some games where Struber said after the game, like, yeah, I mean, we fought really well, and I thought we played really well, but LA played well too. I mean, sometimes two teams play well, and that's just how it goes. The other one gets the result, and there's only so much you can do about it, and it's not really worth dwelling on. And it seems like team has good mindset about it in that respect. So
yeah. And like I think are you saying, I guess, then that it's better if a team is kind of like coming at us with a more systematic exploit in their way, because in a way it's less addressable. I mean, I agree. I think that it is better in kind of the sense that like it is not about individual errors, and it's less of an intangible thing to solve, I guess. But it also, I guess, then requires the opposing team to execute on that kind of a plan. And at this level, that's not really something that teams are able to do, as well as knowing that is also something that is something we're going to be aware of, and occasionally needing to deal with that kind of thing is something we've shown, or we've seen Cork now bail us out of a few tough spots, and our center backs, maybe very long, is on figure out a few kind of like last minute things as well. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't really going anywhere with that. But
yeah, no, I mean, I guess, yeah, I think you put it, or you summarized it back decently well. I guess I think basically we made LAFC earn it. We didn't just give it to them.
Mhm.
It was Carlos Vela, one of the top players in the league in that position, who chipped in a good ball. Ideally, you would want to have a tighter offside trap or something there, but it's also just it's a weakness that we know is inherent to the high line. Most of the time, we do a better job, but I think at Red Bull Arena, we probably don't allow Vela that much space in the first place. If we have a couple other, two of our really influential players, I think that also helps. I also think, and I don't know if Struber commented on this, if because Frankie's been sort of a workhorse so far this season, but he gets subbed out early in that game, and we had Drew on the field already because he came in for Omir, I think, at the half or earlier. And that's just like it's like for like, so you still had Drew and CCJ playing together sort of in that kind of position, but it is a little bit of change in stability there. You have a guy there who is maybe not who's not hands-on marking Vela and everyone else, or just kind of noting the space. I think this is the kind of thing that happens ordinarily. It's within the range of normal things that happen when you play another really good team. And when thinking of what Tolkien said in that press conference, I wonder if that's also how LAFC maybe felt in 2018 when we went toe-to-toe with them. I think one of the more better chess match games of that season was the 1-0 win we had over them at RBA. And like
the best result of the Armas era.
Yeah, definitely. That, and I guess Atlanta 2-0 at RBA, I think, are the two best results. And like that game, our managers were the exact same.
Yeah.
Just like
that's insane.
Did Struber comment on, because he's changed his shirt at halftime, right?
Yeah. The post game press conference was not only just kind of bad vibes because of the loss, and it was like kind of quick because they had to catch a flight. Otherwise I might have asked Struber about it, but in the situation after the game, it was kind of not really worth bringing up. But yeah, I think we were talking about it, Brit, where, because I mean we were together watching the game, where like you think maybe Cherundolo and Struber both subscribe to the same like coach rent the runway agency or whatever that randomly dropped off the same package for both of them, not knowing that they were coaching each other that day. But
well, hats off to Toronto. Maybe it's just etiquette among the people who subscribe to the service that you defer to the home manager. But hats off to Toronto for not folding. He stuck to his guns, and I think that's sort of why
that's where it fell apart. We lost the mental battle right there.
I think so. And I think the second goal, I will say, the second goal that we can see quickly after, not great. It's in rapid fire, it's like, I think it's a little bit less true what I was saying about the first one. But I think it's sort of the situation where we just kind of got a rapid punch. It was sort of an even chess match before that, so to speak. Peaches, you ran wild with a gaming reference last week, so I'm going to use this opportunity to cash in just the chess thing, since that's happening right now in the news too, where it's kind of like, we made one big blunder, they made one big move against us that tilted the match in their advantage, and we got tilted as a result. When you kind of lose your nerve a bit and you start playing worse, even worse than your position even indicates, just because you're thrown off because all your preparation kind of went out the window because you made a mistake. That's how I would characterize those 2 minutes as well. We're better than that second goal that we let up, but I think it's just because we lost a little bit of energy after conceding a goal away from home, 3,000 miles away from home. If it were a playoff match over there for some reason, I don't think that this happening this week means that that's going to happen for sure. Then I think over the course of the season, especially once we fix our home form or continue to fix our home form, knock on wood, that it's not going to happen every week. I think it's, as I've said before, within the realm of typical kind of results that you get when you play a top side. So
I think that's a good
I'm gonna take
analogy,
LAFC.
especially I think the idea of kind of tilt and kind of, especially in chess, where if one thing kind of falls and you've set things up otherwise great, the rest of the pieces also fall. So I think that's very an apt way of how it's been won.
City were tilted from the start, from move 1 on Wednesday. We waited until move 40.
They were mad that their Scholars Mate didn't come off.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I think. Yeah. So was there? I guess the other piece of news I was thinking for press conference as well is that hold the presses. Got to change the weekend edition. Ashley Fletcher has fallen. A fallecido. He is gone. Sounds like we're not picking him up. Is that right?
That's what it sounds like. Struber weirdly didn't definitively say so. He kind of danced around it, but he said when asked, because he started Barlow and Klimala, and Fletcher was nowhere to be seen, and even in with Klimala being out and Barlow having his kids and all that the last few weeks, Fletcher hasn't even gotten a sniff. So yeah, when Struber was asked about it, he just kind of meandered a little bit, saying it just hasn't really worked out, and he's not going to be here anymore. So it's English preseason is basically starting right now, so I imagine you'll see Ashley Fletcher popping up there again pretty soon.
Remind me, did Ross Daly's paper review pull up any interesting rumors or stories in regards to forward or anyone else this week?
Not too much on incoming forwards, but it had been reported that Fletcher, Watford was interested in bringing Fletcher back. So that all kind of lines up. But then, there's been a little bit of action at left back, actually. A couple of players. It's kind of journalistic malpractice on my part to not know their names off the top of my head, but one of them was a player in the Austrian league. I believe he was from Mali, Africa, and shared a lot of similar kind of agencies and backgrounds with Struber and his set. But then that ended up not coming to fruition. It seems like he signed a new contract with his club in Austria, I believe. And then there was another player in France where a tabloid mentioned the Red Bulls as a team that was looking around for him, but also that the Red Bulls were not, really one of the front runners. So, but it's at least some pretty solid smoke that left back is on the agenda for a signing. And then, with Fletcher on the outs, you would imagine bringing in a new kind of senior forward would be in the works too. So we'll see. Obviously, we have the new head of sport, Jochen Schneider, who knows how to get transfers done. If anything, it seems like he got too many done at Schalke, his last job. So Looks like there's some irons in the fire, and we'll just have to see what they end up deciding on. But it seems like there's definitely going to be a couple of senior players added.
I wonder if there's a German word for wheeler dealer.
For leaning your arm out the car window. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we get some players flying out to knock on the gate of the training facility in East Hanover, Odin Wingy style, with the knowledge that we're on a buying mindset.
Every day, Joachim Schneider drives from a beach town outside of Bremen 3 hours into Leipzig to get business done. But cool. So we have 2 matches coming up. A Thursday game, which is as we all know, is actually Wednesday. All games happen on Wednesday and Saturday. And then a Sunday game, which, needless to say, is Saturday. First, we have Atlanta at home. Atlanta, it seems like they're running a little field hospital over there. They're all hurt. My expectations are relatively high for this. I would think that we should be able to, I think, still assert themselves on the way they play. They've not, I think, had incredible form. But what do you guys think? Do you have any expectations of this Atlanta game in particular?
I think, especially now that the home and road form dichotomy has sort of righted itself, and the road form has been, to be honest, a little poor over the last month. It's now at a point where, these home games are sort of not only expected wins, but, kind of must wins if we're going to keep the pace that we're setting in the last couple months. And you would think Atlanta is, kind of there for the taking. Obviously, they still have Joseph, who I guess they've just mortgaged their entire club's technical direction to in the last few years. He's still around, but the rest of the team is pretty depleted, especially in the back. And you would think this is a game where, especially the way we play, we can, force some mistakes out of that back line group. So I don't think it's unfair to expect a win in this one.
I guess the only concern is just the status of Luquinhas and not having him and what sort of impact that would have on how we line up. But even if that's the case, having a wide variety of midfielders being able to step up and step in, whether it's CCJ in a more attacking role or Amaya pushing forward, or just having Omir, I don't know, in somewhere in that midfield or like forward midfield. I think that even with him out, we still should be able to put up a goal or two without a problem. And it sounds like Long will be back and will be available. Cork, that's the kind of signal you got.
Way more confident than Luquinhas, yeah.
So if we're able to hold a steady back line against a pretty middling Atlanta, I could see us putting together a goal or two even without Luquinhas up in the mix.
Yeah, it seems based on the timeline that we know that Luquinhas was still in LA during the press conference, it seems safe or likely that he will probably not be available on Thursday, especially given how our club right now prefers to have guys really in full training and fit and all that before they play. But Sunday, maybe. I hadn't appreciated just how far down the table Atlanta had played, has fallen, and how poor their form is. Not that they're starting from very high, because the last 2 they were not very good either. But on Sunday, of course, SKC.
They're not very good most years, but people don't really want to talk about it.
SKC is even more extreme the case. SKC, I think a lot of people would just sort of assume are always sort of decent, especially as the league expands and it's harder to keep track of every team. But they're real low in the table, only have 4 wins on the year. They're stereotypically good at home, but so is every team. And they're making a cup run. They're in the semifinal. They beat Union Homa 6-0 to extend, and they're playing another USL team. Sacramento Republic in the semi to get into the final. So they may be at the point where they're thinking about a cup run, kind of similar to us in 2017. However, the fact that we're playing a USL team in a semi might soften that. Who knows? But their season is kind of falling out of their hands when it comes to the regular league. Incidentally, if Sacramento wins against SKC, that is the only possible way that we can host a US Open Cup final, which is frustrating. We don't have very good luck for that little mini draw that they do. I was hoping that we could say who we're going to be playing in the next round of the Open Cup, but alas, Rodrigo Schlegel scored in the 94th minute for Orlando, and they're in extra time now, 1-1. And Sean Davis appears, maybe FUTMob just doesn't update for regular yellow cards, but he has earned a second yellow card in the 91st minute. Whether or not he got 2 yellow cards at once in rapid succession, or if they're just not logging yellow cards, I can't say. But Nashville is playing at Orlando with 10 men, 1-1 with 15 minutes to go. So I'm not going to be able to tell you who we're playing there, but we will be playing away at one of those 2 places. I suppose this means that even if we play Nashville, we won't be going against Sean Davis, which is sort of reprieve for the discourse, at least for me.
I just want to quickly get it off my chest that Rodrigo Schlegel is such a nefarious name.
It's tough here.
Just awful.
Although,
awful
given what
vibes,
he did to NYCFC,
yeah,
I don't know. He still has a hot spot.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, and then meanwhile, City and Cincy are 4-4 right now. So I guess that's just going off the rails at the 80th minute. I don't have anything super specific to say about SKC, but I guess I'll just lead from the final note that you were making, Cork, about sort of our home and road form, or kind of flipping back to more conventional expectations, good at home, bad away. This SKC game could be interesting because we're going to be playing sort of a team in bad form away. It could be an opportunity to pick up points, but what are your expectations of this, especially since we have 2 games in sort of quick succession here, just as a final question before we close for all of us?
I think, maybe Luquinhas being out of this Atlanta game is a little bit of a kind of helps Struber make his decision for him, because I think we might see a decent amount of rotation with both the quick turnaround and the travel. No, not all the way out to the West Coast, but pretty decent across the country to KC, and there might be pretty heavy rotation, and just anything that sort of prevents Struber from kind of overthinking it helps. So I think that's one factor to keep in mind, and otherwise, not too much expectation from a game in KC, except that it does feel like we're due for maybe even just a draw on the road to sort of kind of have a nice little bump. And then if Luquinhas is playing, hopefully he doesn't embody the new Kaku spirit by frustratingly kicking a ball into the stands this time in our first trip back to Kansas in 3 years.
God, I didn't realize that was our last trip there, but it really was, wasn't it? Sam, Peaches, any SPC expectations?
Yeah, I think that just further on the idea of rotation, I think that we're going to see. I think Dylan Nealis has yellow card accumulation, right? So he's going to be
that's true.
Out against Atlanta. So to me, I would love to see some more minutes from Harper. And I think this would be a fun game to put him in and really kind of have that. I don't know. I really like what he's brought into games recently. So it'd be fun to get him, 90 or at least a start at the right wing back spot. So I would love to see that. That's really the only thing I would say there. In terms of like how we played in LA, especially compared to how we played in some of our other losses on the road, what felt, I think, nice to see was that we were still generating chances and taking some really good shots after we were down 2-0. And after it seemed like the game had slipped away, we were still actually pressing the attack. And like there were a couple of good, really very notable chances in the last 10 minutes. When I felt like that energy was completely lacking in like a Charlotte game or a Miami game. So I think that's something to look toward as some sort of optimism as we, try to take on Kansas City on the road. So I would say, things are looking good, in both those situations. I would love 6 points. I don't think that's out of reach.
Yeah, I agree with the Cameron Harper thing. I think Dylan Nealon has looked good, but I think Cameron Harper deserves to start with like a real start, not just like start with the second stringers. It'd be cool to see how he plays from like the beginning of the game and how he kind of develops throughout one. But yeah, honestly, like admittedly, I don't really care that much about the rest of the league. So sure, we'll win. That's kind of been my approach to every game.
Those are good shots. It also reminds me that Klimala got a full 90 on Sunday, which is relatively rare. And Barlow started midweek. So my guess was that it'd be likely, or it'd make sense to see Barlow start Thursday and maybe Klimala start Sunday. I think it would be nice to see them just start and do those whole games as much as they can, unless there's a specific need to swap them out. Could also say the same for two midfielders at the face. I think, the load management that we did over last week where like Frankie got pulled a little bit early in LAFC, it makes sense to me. It's not crazy, even though I think it didn't help with us conceding. I think I see the logic there. But I could also see this an opportunity to start CCJ one of these games and then start Drew the other and just kind of let them go as long as they can or as long as it's appropriate. I would prefer we do that than rather try to do like 45 for both of them each. I'd rather just like give them the full run out one at a time and then make adjustments as necessary. And then I hope that Frankie can do both games because he's just been really massive for us. But yeah, I think that is a good shout for rotations we might see. And I'm hoping we can get a solid chunk of points here. A couple other teams are dropping points around, and it feels like we're finally in a position to maybe make some progress up the table again and get some momentum going. Exciting week ahead. Any other thoughts before we sign off? All right. I don't know. I'm probably not going to join you guys next week, but maybe you'll have a fun little guest. So stay tuned for a character from the extended Red Bulls Super League podcast universe, maybe joining View from 202 next week. Till then.
It's Alex!